Welcome. I just want to say this isn't a polished teaching. It's not something I've rehearsed or written out perfectly. This is part one of a story I've never quite shared like this before. It's something real and something lived. Sometimes what feels like breaking is actually the beginning of remembering who you really are. And I know that sounds strange because we're taught to hold on, to keep things together at all costs. But what if the soul has its own logic? What if the loss you're grieving is also the doorway to your most honest expression? To the part of you that's been waiting to come alive? So take a breath with me. You don't need to agree with everything I say, but if something in you feels seen, then maybe this story has something for you. I recently shared a voice memo on my channel about releasing the fear of loss, the fear of loneliness, and the fear of letting go of old frameworks, the psychological strongholds, the psycho-spiritual constructs that act like seals, contracts, bindings. For me, they felt like invisible hooks, like being suspended, pierced from behind, stabbing through the inner field, my inner field, all the way into the heart. These deeply rooted strongholds feel ancient. They inflict themselves across time and space. And yet, most importantly, they may be what's holding us back from accessing our divine sovereignty, from standing fully in our God spark, our angelic light field, our divine authority. Our freedom. This is the space I'm exploring now, not to teach, but to offer a mirror for those walking through the same. Earlier in another video, the one that's now sparking this deeper reflection, I shared about the loss of my brother and sister, my childhood siblings. I spoke about walking away from family relationships afterwards, and also having to step back from connections that weren't necessarily harmful themselves, but were entangled in the aftermath, caught in collateral damage, and by default, endings that came with it. I think many who walk the path of consciousness, of awakening, eventually find themselves ending family relationships. Sometimes it's because of visible behaviors and harmful actions. Other times it's because of inactions, things that were needed and never came. And then there are the more subtle wounds, the slow killing carbon monoxide of unspoken pain, never seen but always felt. A kind of quiet suffocation where the call for survival begins to scream within you, urging you to create space just to take a breath of fresh air. In these situations, we often endure our greatest lessons, our deepest challenges. Sometimes the places where we suffered most are the very ones we spend years recovering from, reclaiming the parts of ourselves left scattered in the aftermath. And often that place is family. Of course, this isn't true for everyone, and thankfully, there are those who seek awakening and still find family to be a refuge, a safe haven, a place where the soul, the heart can rest, where the spirit is lifted, where love replenishes the soul. Part of my channel here is to speak to the soul on a multi-dimensional level, to speak to the soul before it becomes, before it enters the portal of form, before spirit enters the body. I speak also to the part of the soul that already has been, that has seen, has walked, has remembered since the beginning of creation. I speak to all that has been and all that we are becoming. This is my attempt, because if I don't try, well, I need to try to name it, to name the calling of my own soul. And so in this experience, it is my intention to speak, to awaken, to support, to share, and to show love to the ones walking and who have walked through the driest desert, where water never came, not even the mirage. It is my aim to share a bit of my experience, to offer a light that can warm the soul during the coldest hours of night. So, returning to the family experience. As some have heard, they say our soul chooses our family, that our soul asked for what would unfold in this life. But that never sat well with me, not as the only truth, not as the full truth, maybe just a fraction of something bigger. Because on a soul level, in the journey before incarnation, it is possible to be born into the wrong family. It is possible to be trapped, to be coerced, to be manipulated into distorted timelines, inverted realms that don't reflect who you are. Why? Because there are forces that do not want you to shine your light. There are energies that make it nearly impossible for you to reclaim the sovereignty your soul came here to live. The sovereignty where peace, joy, where harmony and love become the pillars of your everyday life, where they meet you around every corner, where destiny and providence rise up to greet your highest, unlimited potential. This is another truth I hold dear in my heart. Okay, to play devil's advocate, let's say maybe I did choose. Maybe there was no infiltration, no coercion, no soul tracking or tagging. Maybe our souls chose difficult families on purpose, as part of the school of life, to bring light into darkness, or to bring darkness up into the light. Maybe these very situations are what allow us to discover the consciousness of the self, the consciousness of God, of our higher selves. Maybe the polarity, the density, the impossible contradictions of our family lives are like fuel for the fire, fuel for becoming. Well, just maybe then. Maybe I'll leave that as a possible truth, a note that softly resonates somewhere inside of me. But still, a choice must be made. Is there a silent, unseen poison lingering in the depths of your lungs? Do you need out? Do you need to break away? To breathe, to think, to give yourself time, space, energetic leniency so you can practice your free will to make a choice, to stand in your divine authority and follow that choice as it unfolds into self-discovery, into possible healing, into the reclamation of your soul's light. Can you do this while still breathing in the poison, while standing in the very place it was released, where the conditions were crafted for it to spread, and still upheld to let it linger? On another level, what if the events unfolding within your family dynamic are influenced and even superseded by your ancestral storylines, by choices made long before you arrived, by ancestral curses, contracts, agreements, or even by a parallel version of yourself from another time, another life? Maybe the choices once served, maybe those choices once served a purpose. Maybe they were necessary for survival. But what once protected you may now be restricting you. What was once aligned may no longer serve the highest and most sacred path of your life today. Could the contract that ripples through the quantum field into your life now be outdated? Is it time to re-examine what you've inherited? I say this as an offering, as an attempt to hold all possibilities. Isn't that the goal? To wonder, to probe, to ask, to discern, to overturn every stone of possible truth, to become the archaeologist of your own soul, the philosopher, the scientist, to study your own field, to know your own soul. And what of those around you? Do you see them clearly? Are they truly for you? Or do you recognize the subtle energies, the quiet envy, the unspoken jealousy, the feeling of not being seen, the sting of disdain? What's being projected onto you energetically? What inverted templates or programs are you being guilted or shamed into accepting as your truth? The list could go on. But the inquiry itself is holy, because the soul deserves to be known by the one who walks in it. This is just the beginning of the story. There are more pieces I'll share in time, but for now, if you've ever felt like you were drowning in something no one can name, I want you to know you're not alone, you're not broken. You matter, your soul matters, and your being matters. I want to thank you for walking this part with me if you're still here. This is part 1 to a series of storylines that I will share about how making really difficult choices, about how making sometimes what seems near impossible and very difficult choices can be what leads us onto our greatest becoming, our greatest knowing. And so in the next part, I'll speak more directly about the loss of my siblings, breaking away from my family after the loss of my siblings, ancestral storylines, ancestral curses, ancestral influence, and what it taught me about, what this all has taught me about seeking something, some sort of truth about death, devotion, and reclaiming the self, myself. And if this resonates with you, I hope that you look forward to the next part of the series here, of these storylines that I will unfold. And if you are going through something similar, I encourage you to maybe re-listen to this video again and see if something touches you differently each time, or something helps you bring the inquiry you need, or the support and the wonder, or the courage to traverse forward. So if you are here, I love you, thank you, and I look forward to sharing a bit more in the future. Thank you so much.